So you're talking about being a mother or becoming a mother for the first time and how that increased your empathy and your ability to see individuals that you're working with or have different relationships as people. And one of the things I think about a lot with children and ourselves is that we are people before I mean, you are Danielle before your mommy,
Right.
before your wife, before your consultant. You know, you're Lacey before wife, before mommy, you know, all of these different things. Did having children increase your ability or kind of jumpstart your ability to see yourself as yourself beyond these relationships professionally?
Absolutely, 100%. I definitely, I think like you, over-identified myself with work, over-identified myself with things that really don't define or don't have to define you, I guess, and started really just paying a little more attention to what I wanted to be instead of what I thought I was going to be, or what I was told to be, just what I wanted to be. And what I realized is I wanted to be a really fucking good mom. Like that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be, available. I wanted to be present. I wanted to be, just really tied into this little human being that I had helped create. But one thing that slapped me in the face really early was that we do not, somebody told me once that they come through us, they don't come from us. I believe that 100%. That, yeah, we don't decide.
Not an owner.
Yeah, I mean, and we just have to nurture. And so that's like, I found a nurture in myself that I didn't think existed.
Yeah, and especially if you are, I would like to say with girls, especially like as they grow, you better understand your role because you think you're shaping something and something is really shaping you
100%.
big time.
Well,
like
I was born to a young mom. My mom was 18 when she had me. Her due date and her first week of college was the same week.
wow.
And she ended up graduating college a year after I did. And so the message growing up was, do not get pregnant, do not have a baby. Kids ruin everything. And I'm like, thanks, mom. And what she was saying was, I want you to have more options. I want you to really be able to enjoy the world and really come into who you are and go on trips. And I did. I traveled and I, went to Kenya. I went to, I did all these things in my career. I didn't get pregnant until I was 32. And so I felt like at 32 that I had a lot to give, and so I did leave the hospital like, y'all not coming home with me? Help me.
Everybody.
100%.
But when I got home,
Get y'all a retainer.
I looked at this baby and I was like, no, I really have some life experience and some lessons and some wisdom to share with this child that would really equip her for whatever her journey is going to be. And I'm just so glad that I honored my own intuition and my own desires and the timing of my pregnancy and the timing of my choice, because I really feel like we are in a great groove where I've been in them streets. The streets have no appeal. No, so I'm happy to be at home like painting and like doing like science projects. You know what I'm saying? And really asking her like, what do you think about density? Like how do you understand this? And feeling like I really have curated the motherhood journey that I always dreamed. And my mom looks at us and says, this is what I wanted for you. So it's also really gratifying for her to say, I'm glad that I taught you the way I taught you, because Sage is just, she's like a little firecracker, right? And so
Absolutely. What I'm hearing from both of you all, though, is just like vulnerability.
Yes.
The increase in vulnerability. And I think about that in our ability to give. A friend of mine says something that I take to heart. I love it. He uses it all the time, and I use it in my practice, both as an artist and socially. He says 2 words: complicate me. When you complicate something or someone, you give it dimension, right? You're looking at something as a flat panel, is like, that's it. And being a parent, I think as a mother and even in relationships, it requires you to find complexity in everything, because nothing about parenting and nothing about being in a relationship before or after parenting is linear. And my father always says that a woman changes. He said this before I had my first child, but he was like, you know, a woman is a different woman before she has her child,
Yes.
while she's pregnant, after she has the first child, while she's pregnant with the second, after she has the second. And he's like, so a man can be married to a woman
Yeah.
and have five different women
versions
over the
of her.
course of a period of
Different
time.
versions of her.
So speaking of that, how do you think your vulnerability has shifted in your relationships, um, you know, for better or for different challenges as you've gone on your parental journey, you know, and where have you found healing in some of those spaces?
I mean, as far as my relationship goes with Troy, I think this is the most vulnerable I've ever been with him because I feel like this is the safest I've ever felt with Troy in our relationship. Obviously, like I mean, Troy and I have been together since we've had Elle, and just being on that journey, learning how to parent together, learning how to adult together, you know, there was all kinds of murky, just really horrible things that like came along with that. And as I just continued to grow into myself and my confidence, I felt much more comfortable with being honest with my partner and like being you know, and telling, you know, sharing some things that I might have hid before because I was kind of invested in like trying to make sure that we would be together and stay together and like have this really joyous partnership. But at the end of the day, like the thick stuff, the mud always rises. So,
Right.
you know, these past few years in my relationship, I tell everybody it's been the hardest. It's been the most difficult, but I feel like it's been, you know, we've never worked harder at our relationship, even though it's still been really hard. We've never worked harder at learning, growing, stretching ourselves, stretching that empathy, stretching that grace, and like also attaining new skills, new language, you know, and new ways of being. One thing that Troy and I are working on, which I mean, the kids also know, like, they see everything, they can feel everything, right? And I think the kids are also seeing, like, how we're learning and growing together as a partnership and not settling for like a mediocre relationship just for the sake of being together. So what the kids are seeing right now is we are slowing down our conversations with one another and really like pausing to really deep dive into like, okay, well, what's beneath this reaction that I'm getting? Like, what's behind this stuff that we're talking about?
But isn't that the
constantly,
thing?
right?
Like it's always a
That's
thing behind. There's a thing always behind the thing.
Yeah.
How to, you know, like in
Yeah.
anything, personal or professional.
Yeah.
There's always a thing behind it.
And that's the vulnerability, right? And I feel like this is the safest it's ever been to like really just be vulnerable and be honest with the kids and with Troy about like, I'm still learning, I'm still growing, like I'm still making mistakes, I'm always going to make mistakes, and that is okay. But like, watch me model like how I'm going to be accountable, how I'm going to be, you know, grace giving, and how I'm going to be looking for grace actively too.
You know, my college mentor, way back in the day, set me down at a table and she said, Danielle, do not put yourself in a position to have a baby with a man unless you are okay with that child growing up to be just like him. And I took that to heart and I was like, not you, not you, not you.
No,
Not you. I'm not going to give birth to any of the miniature versions of these men.
Yeah.
And so, being friends with Devon for so many years before we got married, I would notice how people would just give this man their children. Like he would be like in college with like a toddler, like
Where'd you get that?
who gave you their baby? And he's like, this is my coach's daughter. Like,
Oh
and
my
so we would always be like, and where are you going? And he'd be like, to my mama's house. You know what I'm saying? Like he went crazy. But I noticed that he was always very interested. Devon and I used to babysit together.
Oh,
Like we had some friends that called us step parents because we were their kids' step parents. Like
I
we were
love
the
that.
we were the go to when they needed a date night. And this is before we were even looking at each other
Right.
romantically. And so I always knew that he would share the load of parenting
Fair.
joyfully, and we wouldn't have this like weird patriarchal like I'm gonna sit here and watch TV while you do all the work. That was never the vibe. So vulnerability for us has really accelerated the way that we parent Sage and the resources that we can provide for her, because in my house I am not the end all. I am not the final say. You know, I'm not mother knows best. I'm like, hey man, let's figure this out together, right? I don't know. We've never encountered, you know, some of the things that we're studying schools and trying to figure out what magnet program is the best for her and that kind of stuff. And so, you know, it's been the vulnerability has had this amazing return in terms of us being able to really put our like all of our intelligences together to come up with
Agreed. Yeah.
the best way to, you know, support our child as she develops. And if I was like, nope, I got it, don't worry about it, go on in there and watch your game, you know what I mean, like it would really be limited. But since that's not the flow of communication, I really feel like Sage is winning because of the way that we're able to be vulnerable.
I think about, so my partnership came much later in my parenting years, you know, the one that I feel secure with, right? And I think about how the experience for me is comparatively new by us sitting here, of being vulnerable enough or being comfortable enough in front of another person to possibly fail at certain things as a parent, right? And also recalibrating my ideas around troubleshooting, or even not even if it's not trouble, what about visioning? You know, revising or recalibrating the vision of what the win or what great things could, would, or does look like.
Yes.
You know, so I've never had a co-pilot in those types of things. It was always like, what did I think? What was the best thing? You know, what was the best way of going about this? And then at some point, I had to radically shift and allow space for another person to kind of co-pilot, not kind of like literally
Just
co-pilot
Yeah.
this whole thing. So I'm thinking about your relationships, you know, outside of mine being different territory, outside of logistically, like romantically as a mother, how have you been able to maintain that, not necessarily like what was before, but what is now? Where does that come into play?
Like
you
the
know?
intimacy?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
in any type of intimacy, and I don't mean just romance. I mean, you know, where is the play? Like,
Yeah.
I remember with my partner about a month ago, I was like, we have to figure out, no, a few months ago, we're going to have to figure out how to have conversations that don't either start or end in logistics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like there need to be whole conversations that can be completely humorous,
Right.
meaningless,
Oh,
fun, dreamscapes, but they cannot end in or start with logistics.
The
Who's
schedule.
doing that?
Yeah,
How we gonna do this? How we
exactly.
gonna do that?
And I found that that was something that I needed because
Yeah.
I do that all day long. So I needed
Same.
something else. But yeah,
It's
I'll start
hard.
there. Yeah.
It's effort. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing I learned is the relationship. No matter what little dream you had as a kid, like it's not just gonna happen.
It's not gonna
It's not
naturally
gonna
fall
just
together.
be perfect
Yeah.
and beautiful. It's work, just like everything else, and it's effort, and it's planning, and it's taking the time to be mindful of what your partner needs from you. And add that to your to-do list and put it at the top of the to-do list and not just as a, you know, a side thought. You have to really make that effort. And I think I certainly was naive to that. Absolutely. I thought, you know, oh, we go together now. Like
We locked in.
that's it.
This is my boyfriend, and he's not going.
Right. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how I
Right.
treat him. It doesn't matter what I say to him. But that's not true. That's not true.
Yeah.
You both need things from each other, and I had to learn to pay attention to that. And even if I can't do everything that you know I know my partner needs, I do what I can, and I'm still trying to get better at doing everything. But like I had to learn that you know, yeah, we're tired and we've got a newborn or we've got a 5-year-old and a newborn, and maybe I don't want to have sex tonight. Maybe I'm not interested in that. But I can tell my husband that he looks good and that I like seeing him get out the shower or whatever. And I learned that might do it for him tonight, and I can go to sleep.
You got to learn how to whistle.
You know, like
I'm
you look
sleepy,
good.
but I like what
See you
I'm
in the
seeing if I go to
morning.
sleep.
I'm a dream about it.
For us, I mean, so my background is that I actually am like just coming into my career. So like, you know, had this baby, followed Troy. I was working, and then Troy's career really took off and took us to Asia, took us to Europe, and so I had put my like career and aspirations on, you know, the back burner to just be the constant in the kid's life. Troy traveled for work all the time, and I was kind of, and we all have, you know, Houston has always been our base, but we don't have any family here. So for me, it was important to like make sure that somebody was present for the kids as Troy was traveling and all that kind of stuff. And so now that like I've got this bookstore and I'm this entrepreneur, like obviously life in the
It's
house
been busy.
has changed significantly. Not only in my interactions with the kid and how the kids and how accessible I am to the kids, but also how accessible I am to Troy. And so for us, what has come to be super important is like intentionality. Like I desire to be intimate with you in all kinds of ways. So like this is what that is going to look like. And Troy and I spend time talking about like, well, what do we want this intimate time to look like? And unfortunately, it's not as sexy, but like we put it on the calendar, right? So we do the date night thing.
Yes.
We have 2 date nights a week, actually. We aspire to. One date night happens on Monday nights, and it's like okay, let's talk about like, let's check in with each other about like, what are the things that we need to talk about that's been bothering us this week? Like, let's read this relationship book together. Let's open this corny ass app and like answer these questions.
Just got one of those. I want to
But,
say
like,
it. No, it's really
pretty ass
cool.
app. Which
No,
one?
it
But you
sends a
need-
question to each one every day.
Oh, I saw
Yes.
that. I saw that on the
And as
bio.
corny as it sounds, like often these, you know, you have to like be intentional. Sometimes
Yes.
you need help with like
Yes.
intimacy. So these little corny question apps, like I had to like be like, okay, Terry, I know you think you're cool, but like you can sit and answer this question. Get into it.
You are
So,
cool,
like,
though. Like, you're
that-
not cool for that.
Okay.
So like that's our Monday night, and then on Thursday nights we try to like go have fun. We go out to dinner. We try to, you know, go see an art show or go see a conversation. We go to a lot of author talks together. So like that is something that is scheduled, it's
Yeah.
intentional. It doesn't always happen, but I noticed that like when we don't have it scheduled, it tends to always go to the back burner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And that's a dangerous place
Yeah.
to be in, right?
there's never time. There's always you have to make time.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's what intimacy looks like for Troy and I.
Intentionality. I like it.
I've scheduled sex before. Like, okay,
I'll-
on this
I'm
Monday
not
date
sure
night,
either.
we're just gonna go lock the door and have sex.
But you know what I've been thinking about a lot, you know, as you know, my partner currently now and the children, they're all in Portugal, right? And so timing has been extremely important. We're literally 6 hours time difference. So when you say timing, it's literally like, okay, how can we get time where before I'm starting to have my first call, the children going to school, him doing his thing. Do we have any time that we could like,
Right.
you know, talk sexy on the phone before the kids come home, you know, like, or at night, or what are we doing? Like, how to even play around with that. And then also with the career, you know, it's like you literally, again, you know, cool people, but essentially it came down to like, we have to talk at this time, or we'll have to do this, like we'll have to
Yes.
make exact times for
Yeah.
these things, or it's like decline call
Yes.
tomorrow, this, that. And I
That
mean,
won't happen.
and with the physical distance, it's impossible, right? Yeah. So I love to hear these different perspectives. It's really beautiful. Makes me think about like the dimensions of womanhood and us over time being able to grow into the posture of being able to vocalize our needs and wants and desires, mainly with ourselves. And so, speaking of that, whether it's personal or professional, who is a woman, whether you know them personally or not, that has really inspired you on your journey thus far?
That's a good one.
Who wants to go?
That's a good. Okay, I can go because I told you.
Okay,
We started
go for it,
with-
go
So
for
I have three
Okay.
women. The first is Maya Angelou. I've read almost everything she's ever written. I'm still working through all her poetry, but her like autobiographical writing, her interviews, and she's very candid about how she parents her son Guy. And so just like learning from her how she made it work and arranged care for him, and even from her regrets as a mother. Like I just had never read that, and that opened up a conversation with me and my mom, who my mom was a young mom, and just very involved. My mom was like, you know, whatever you want to do, we're gonna figure out how you can do it. And then my godmother, because my mother was so young when she had me, I actually was raised by my godparents from 6 weeks old to 13. And so I like with back and forth between my godparents' house during the week and then I'm at my parents' houses on the weekend after they divorced. My godmother ran for school board. I like campaigned for her. You know what I mean? Like she writes math books that get adopted by like whole states. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I call her the Hove of math. Like she's like the Jay-Z of math in Texas. Um, and so there was like no limit to her success. And she was also like at everything. You know, like I remember her going on my college campus and like arguing with my biology professor because I got a D. And she was like, no, because this child is gifted and you're not going to give her no D. And he was like, ma'am, do you realize this is college? Like, you can't come up here and argue with the professor. You know, and she was like, yes, I can. And so,
Hold my drink.
right. She was like, watch me. And so those three women have very unique parenting styles and philosophies. However, all of them were also major forces in the world in their area of purpose, and they were also effective mothers at the same time. So that's the frame of reference that I have, is that you don't have to choose. You can be your badass, you know, unique unicorn butterfly self, and you can be an extremely attentive and nurturing mother at the same time.
I love that you brought that into the conversation. Like you had several different mothers.
I had several.
Like,
It took a village to raise me. I was a
and,
lot.
and hearing you say that, like you came into your partnership, you know, later on in your mothering journey, but I'm sure you had like parenting partners that just looked different, right?
Oh
Like,
man, I mean, going to Chicago, I found many mothers, and some of them were in the form of friends because there wasn't this disconnect between, which I love in the Black creative community in Chicago. Your friend can be 60. You know,
Your real homegirl
yeah,
can
like
be
your
60.
real
Yeah.
friend
Yeah.
can be 60, not someone you look at like a mother, you know.
Like, oh, hey, miss.
But what did happen in Chicago is that I started to look at the evolution of womanhood very different because the women over 50 there, I call them like the mud cloth crew. Like they come out.
and they fly
Fierce.
too.
I
They're
cannot
ready.
wait.
Listen,
I'm so
they are
excited
out,
to turn
they are
50.
ready. Like
Yeah.
they didn't go, and these are women who I got to know. Again, the difference between commuter culture and like drive-in culture, you get more intimacy. People are more comfortable with being in tight spaces with people that they don't know. It's a different
Yes.
psychology, and I've
Yeah.
learned that, you know, the difference in being there. There's a very short introductory period when people grow up in commuter culture cities.
Yeah.
So you learn about these women who were, you know, James Baldwin used to come to their house for dinner, and like they were raised in Bronzeville. They were
Yeah.
raised in a space of Renaissance. They knew people who were, you know, worked on the Wall of Respect. They knew Dr. Margaret Burroughs and Gwendolyn Brooks, or their mother
Yeah.
did, you know, the African Heritage Ensemble, or their cousin or their mom modeled for Ebony Fashion Fair, you know, like, or worked at Johnson Publishing. There's a different negotiation of Black power and womanhood there that I undoubtedly adopted, you know, as a daughter,
Yeah.
you know, from many of these women because, you know, earnestly, a lot of that wasn't reflected in my biological you know, womanhood, the women that I knew biologically to be, you know, aunts or so forth and so on. And everyone has their own journey, but I immediately aligned. I was like, I'm not crazy. This is how I want to feel about my life after now and after, you know, a certain point. So I had people that inspired me there, like Amina Dickerson, who is a cultural juggernaut, like has consulted for multi-million dollar, billion-dollar cultural institutions, subcontracted, ran them all over the world. You know, she's one of the first people that empowered me about like art collecting and was like, if you can't buy the artwork, buy the book. She has an astounding collection. And she was like, in my 20s, when I couldn't afford the art, I would just buy the book. And if I couldn't buy the book, I would just get the catalog. And if I couldn't get the catalog, I would buy the postcard.
Get the postcard. Get the
I put them in a frame and put them on the wall.
that
So
thing.
that's how I started when I was in college.
Yeah.
I would get the postcards from these shows that were these amazing exhibitions that I knew I wouldn't dare even ask, you know, because I was too intimidated, you know, the way things were then in the art world, and in many ways still are. I put them on my refrigerator, or I would frame them, you know, and pretend. And it really built a confidence and a relationship with art and the art world. She made it accessible and available.
Accessibility.
And when my first investor dropped out from my studio at Manor Contemporary, within 24 hours, and she was in Paris, she put down the first deposit for my first art studio that I still have right now in Chicago. That was the foundation of my personal art practice. There's so many things that led up to this moment. There are so many happenings over years of time that made this moment able to be what it has been. We didn't just meet today. You know, there are a number of different through lines, a number of different ways. And then here we are on this sofa in my gallery, you know, with the cool moms, on behalf of CoolxDad, you know, and it just feels but it feels like, again, moving into, it feels like part of a collective evolution as opposed to a personal accomplishment,
Yeah.
which I think is really fun and exciting. So I really look forward to more of our time together.
gosh,
This
yes.
conversation was so fruitful, and all of the libations and the bites were amazing. Here's to us and to all of the cool moms out there.
Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers. Not a regular mom. I'm a cool mom.
I believe.